brush to get rid of any chips that might remain. So here are the ramrod pipes. I actually need to grab one more. It requires 3 of them. So I'm going to go over to the bin and get one more. Let's start with the middle one here. So these tabs are relatively short, but these tabs are a little longer than is needed, and I think that there's going to be a little bit of interference with the barrel, so they sometimes need to be filed down a little bit. Now, probably shortly, we're going to be machining those down and providing holes in the tab to for the pins, so they won't have to be drilled, and that's something that we do on our Colonial rifle, where the holes are already in the tabs. So depending on when you watch this video is put out in April 2019, you may already have this step taken care of. It's probably going to be something that we do within the next couple months. So the ends of the inlets are pretty close to the right length. They need to be squared up. They have a bit of a radius in the ends of the inlet. So we'll come in here with a little chisel. It's just a 1/16 inch chisel. You could again use a knife. I'm going to come in here. Let me find my optivisors here. And just straighten this end up. And just stabbing along the end of the inlet. The depth should be good. Everything should be good except just take that little bit of radius out of the corner. And that's probably something that we'll at some point have completed as well. Okay, so that side has been stabbed in, so I'll just come in with the chisel and pop out that little bit of wood. Okay, now go to this other end. I'm going to take this on here and make sure it's the right length. Yeah, that length will be fine. Okay, that's pretty good. Go. That'll work. Could also use a little gouge to do the step here, but since this is such a narrow chisel, this little flat, 1/8 inch flat is what this is. I mean, I might have said 16th, which is 1/8 inch flat approximately. Okay, so the pipe should go in the stock now. The tab, I suspect the tab's going to be a little tall, so it will probably interfere with the barrel, but we'll see. So yeah, it's starting to go in, but the tab, it won't go in any further because it's hitting the barrel is what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this tab down a little bit, the height of the tab. We can do that with a file, or we can do it with a belt sander, grinder. We'll go ahead and just demonstrate with the file, since you may not have a belt sander or a grinder. So you can just clamp it up like this carefully, not crushing it. Clamp it up like this in your vise. And take a file. That'll cut it decent. just along it. Getting there, just about has it. That should be good. A little bevel on it. Okay. Now we install this. It should go in without any trouble, and it does. Looks good. So there's no gaps. It fits down in there very well. So and it's seated fully in place. So we're good to go. We'll use the same procedure on the forward pipe here. The web, that is the distance from the bottom of the inlet to the barrel channel, is a little less on this forward location, so you will have to file a little bit more off. I'll just go ahead and probably do that off camera. I'll just take it to the belt sander and I'll just belt sand it down a little bit and basically trim the end of the inlet in the same way. So let's go ahead and move our attention to the entry pipe here. I like to take the Ramrod pipe and file it, flatten it out a little bit. It's pretty flat, but it's been, apparently the material's been sheared, so it has a little radius. I like to just flatten it off a little bit. And then it'll butt up against with the surface we have a little better. So again, we're going to take our chisel and true up this radius, just like we did on the previous one. Okay, I'm going to come back in and oops, get that lid out of our way. The inlets have been cut with a 1/8 inch ball nose tool, so it leaves a 1/16 inch radius, and the pipes are pretty square at the end, so that's the purpose of this. And I'll probably come back at some point with a 1/16 inch flat, and I can square those up pretty well. Okay, so there's that. Trim the front here. Get in there. Oops, I cut a little crooked there. Have to fix that. There. Okay. Let's try that. Looks like it should be okay. So yeah, that's going to fit fine. If there's any marks or any tool marks in it, you want to trim it real flat. That's pretty good. And this is going to butt up against it, and it's going to go down in. Now again, I'm going to have to probably trim the height of this tab a little bit. Let's see, it needs to be adjust it just a little here. Just squaring up that end, making sure that it's nice and uniform. Okay. So I'm just going to slip over to the belt sander, cut that tab down a little bit, and then the pipe will be ready to install. Okay, so I've trimmed this tab, the height of that tab down a little bit, so it shouldn't interfere with the barrel now. Butt it up against the stock, drop the front in, tap it in place, and it looks good. It's fully seated and ready to be pinned on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pin these on. Take our clamp again. Okay. Squeeze that into the inlet good. Take a drill bit. I just inserted it in the pre-drilled hole. I just spotted it, so that means I put a little dimple. I started the hole. We're going to take this out now. Come on. Get out of there. There it comes. So we have a dimple now. Okay. Okay, so I drilled it. So now we're going to put it back in the inlet. A piece of our pin stock. Around the end. As I mentioned before, get out of there, come on. It's a good idea to make sure the pin will go through first, which it does. And keep track of which way these go too, because you flip them, it may not work so well. Start this in here like this, get a little hammer, and it should. Let's pull it down at the clamp, because it seems to be a little snugger than it should. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe I flipped it. Might be. The pliers here. Yep. Okay, so this is the way it needs to go. Now it should actually go in. There. So I did what I warned you about. A good little tip then is to remove it. I just take there's several ways to do this. I usually take a center punch. And I call this number 1. Now this is an automatic center punch, and I put a little dot at the front. It's sort of a convention. You can also take a little file. And if you have a 3-cornered file, you can just file a little slash across it. So just so you know, have some convention of which pipe goes where and what's the front. Back in. Okay. Then we have this one to do. And we'll do this one on camera and the last one, then I'll do the whole operation off camera. So let's go ahead and turn it. It doesn't fall out here. We'll again clamp it into the stock. A little bit. Smart, mark this one right now. Now I'll finish out the hole. So if anything, you don't want the hole to wander away from the pipe. You want it to wander a little bit towards the pipe. So you can angle your drill bit a tiny, tiny bit, or just go straight up and down. You could do this on a drill press too. Wouldn't hurt. That's pretty good. Just going to put this back in the same way. There we go. Cut a little piece of pin stock that I just had. I'm starting to get a mess here. My pin stock. Here it is. Again, get a nice radius to the tip of it. Put it here. It's going in. If it doesn't want to go in, don't just keep beating it. You know, just try to figure out why it doesn't want to go in. Because if you hammer it, you could do damage if you hit it too hard. So that's in the stock. They're both pulled down nice. They don't rattle around at all. So we're good to go. Like I said, I'll do this one off camera, and then we'll move on to the next step.